Welcome back to Isaac Benny, the channel, the cult of personality that so many people like to follow. Today we're going to be talking about an interesting situation and a somewhat related topic. So I'll start out by saying, as everyone should know, you do not come into the faith, Christianity, through your own merits. It is by the grace of God that we are spiritually resurrected, since we are spiritually dead to begin with, that we can ever arrive at the true answer. So that kind of rolls into the fact that, in the same vein, if you can be convinced into something, you can be convinced out of it. Even facts, we're very fickle creatures. If you can be convinced into believing in God, technically you can be convinced out of it. And that's where God's grace comes in. We are able to really see and understand our faith through God's grace working in us. So that does kind of relate in that there was a person in the Operation Reformation Discord who was deciding on becoming Catholic or not. We have those every now and then. And, I like to try and convince them away from it if I can. Other people try to as well, but it didn't work ultimately. And I think that very much relates to what I started with about being saved in Christ, in that the church that you choose is almost not based on your own choice, because you can be convinced of Catholicism, you can be convinced of Eastern Orthodoxy, you can be convinced of non-denominationalism. There are all plenty of true things about all of those different types of churches. You can find the truth in just about anything, but it doesn't mean that everything about it is in fact true or good. There's also the goodness part of it. So part of this is we need to, as people broadly, but especially as Christians, be able to find the good in things, not just the truth. Because there is truth, like I said, there's truth in everything, in just about everything anyways. And I would think that the fruits of certain churches can tell you a lot about them. Now, obviously, that's not everything either, because I'm part of the PCUSA. The fruits of the PCUSA, as of the past 100 years, give or take, haven't been the greatest as a whole, especially in the past 10 years or so, 10, 20 years. But I think it's up to us to take the best arguments of any given form of thought, so not just like the specific institution of the PCUSA, but more broadly the Presbyterian Church, or I guess you could say Reformed thought, Calvinism. So it's up to us to take the best form of that, the Iron Man, I think is what they call, not the straw man of the argument. Same thing for Catholic Church, and so on and so forth. And we can try and discern through that way, taking in the truth and the goodness and of course the beauty of all of these things. So non-denominationalism will have truth, and it will even have goodness, but it has no beauty, really. Very, very little beauty. And it's lacking on both truth and goodness too, but it does have it. So it's up to us to take all three of those combined and figure out which one makes the most sense. But not everyone is always going to see the same thing as everyone else. And that's where we get to people who are becoming Catholic. We cannot be trying our hardest to use every single logical argument to persuade somebody away, because at some point it does start to push people away, because their hearts have already been made up. Their minds are still looking for things, but their heart is already made up. That guy last night that we were talking to in a group chat, I could already tell there was pretty much no saving him. I mean, I wouldn't say I was 100% certain, but I could tell with a high amount of certainty. Sorry, I was popping my back there. I could tell with a high amount of certainty that he was not going to stay with us, and it is what it is. So I just told him, you're just gonna have to pray on it, because your heart is already made up. I think that's the way we have to take a lot of things, because people get too cerebral when they're arguing or debating certain things, and it actually loses the big picture by thinking too hard and trying to be too logical. And in a sense, you actually lose your logic in doing that, because there are always the fine details and the big picture. And the big picture would say that, me continuing to argue with somebody about something that they've already made their heart up on is not going to help them and may actually push them away even further, because it makes you look like you don't really understand what they are, what exactly they're feeling, how exactly they're arriving at their conclusion, which is not totally logical. Somebody, the truck behind me, I think just honked out of nowhere. Don't know why. And so that's where people need to learn, and you can take this on more than just Catholicism, obviously, or people converting to different denominations. It applies to just about everything. It's a very good life lesson that I still have a hard time with. I love to debate just about everything. I will keep on arguing sometimes. I have gotten a lot better about it, but I'm still not great. So that is just a lesson that I think everybody should learn. I guess that's pretty much it. Go out in the world and be good to people. Don't just argue just because you're right. Because in reality, everybody is wrong sometimes about everything. And so we should be trying to look for what really is in that person's best interest, not just what I think I would do in their shoes, but what should you do for them given their situation. So yeah, it gets a little convoluted trying to think about that. It is what it is. So yes, have a great day. Go out there and save some lives. Bye.